It's the middle of February and I cannot wait to show you around my garden. It's time for a February garden tour. Not just the good things, but the bad things as well, or at least the not so great things. So come on, come and have a look around my garden in February. Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to my garden in February. It has been a long time since I've done a garden tour. It's very much long overdue and I'm really looking forward to showing you around this place because a lot has happened since you last got to see it properly. Not all of it good. So come with me, I'm going to show you everything that's been happening and we're going to start right here in the front garden. So this garden tour is going to be about radical honesty because actually it is all too easy for me to simply stand really close to the camera and let the rest of the garden blur away so that it just looks green and beautiful when actually you're not seeing the truth of what I'm dealing with. If you've seen any of my garden tour videos before, you'll know that the front garden is very simple. One big lawn with some nice big mature trees. And as you can see, thankfully, they are all still here. But yeah, the grass isn't exactly the greatest. And look at this. This was a line of low cypress hedges, but sadly, they were getting really past their best. Despite looking good from a distance, they were actually quite rotten to the point of moulding in some places. They made the driveway really narrow, which made it hard to get the cars in. And they really were just a load of upkeep for something that I didn't particularly love. Last year, I had those lifted. That created this big scar. But then there has been about 6 to 7 months of having builders and workmen driving in their trucks and their vans. There were cement lorries, you name it. They have been in, they have driven over this whole area, and it is now really messy and compacted and wet. But I have a plan, and the plan is that this is now going to be completely changed into a perennial planting border. What's going to happen is I'm going to mark out a nice, big, long, straight section all the way along here up to the hedge. There's a pile of bricks there. They're going to be going. And it's going to be grasses and perennials. It's going to make it much simpler, and I think it's going to look really nice. But otherwise, what I'm also trying to do is get on top of the front grass. Last year, we had a load of stuff removed, as well as these hedges, but we had to have them removed with a JCB digger, and they basically used this whole section in the centre of the garden as a turning circle. And since then, I have been letting it regrow. The grass isn't great, and there's a lot of divots and things like that. But it is getting better, and if I keep on top of it, I'm going to get it back to a lawn, the kind of lawn that I really liked. But that's all for the front garden. Wait until you see the secret garden. Welcome to the secret garden, or what is no longer the secret garden. If you remember what it used to look like, and if you don't, here's what it used to look like. This garden was really secret and closed in and secluded. On one side, all the way along here, we had big, tall Leyland cypress hedges that were probably about 18 feet high and probably about 10 to 12 foot wide. They bordered down this side of the garden, and then on this side, just as with the front garden, there was a long line of quite short cypress hedges, which again had the same problem. They weren't a great shape, they were getting really old and they were starting to rot on the inside. So they've come out. And you can see with everything removed quite how different this space feels. It feels kind of sad because nothing's been done to it and a lot of stuff has been removed. But on the plus side, it's lifted everything. There's so much more light, there's so much more air, and I think this is going to make this whole corner of the garden something great. I'm seeing this as an opportunity to completely reinvigorate this place, and I'm going to change it from the secret garden into what I think is going to be a winter garden. It already has this lovely structure of the small box hedges, the trees and all of that shape. So it's always going to have that nice look in the winter, but I think I can make it even better. I need to get lots more light in again. There are big shrubs like the Mahonia that are going to need to be really hard pruned. The grass, well, there's virtually no grass left because I haven't done anything with it over the last couple of years. It's got covered in leaves and it's been cleared out. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to pave it. There's a little water feature that's going to get moved into the middle, and I'm going to plant in here autumn, winter and early spring flowering shrubs and plants so that I can come in here in the winter and have that same feeling of seclusion that the secret garden used to have, with nice things to look at, nice things to smell and enjoy, but at the same time not necessarily being so closed in, which was a bit of a problem. Now, yes, it's going to be a lot of work, just like everything else, but I'm happy. I think this is going to be relatively easy to do, and in fact you can see I've already started bringing the pavers from a different part of the garden. They're going to be going down soon. I can't wait to make this into what I think it could be, and you can keep me on track. If you've watched the channel for a while now, you'll know that I'm a really big fan of this little device. This is the Moasure 2 Pro, but you might be wondering why I think it's such a good thing. Well, today I'm going to show you how it is brilliantly accurate, but as well as accuracy, it can save me so much time. I'm going to show you exactly how it saves me all that time. And it's going to happen right here inside, well, what was the secret garden. So let's get the device set up, the stick set up, and let's get going. I'm going to be using pavers and gravel in this area now, and I need to know not only the area, but I also need an idea of how flat the ground is. Well, the Moasure 2 Pro can do both of these things at the same time, even with this big pile of garden waste in the middle. All I have to do is move from point to point across the garden, and the Moasure 2 Pro is not only recording the actual dimensions, but it's also recording the topography. How nifty is that? I've never measured these outside little hedges as well, but now I can. No bother. I don't have to run the device along the ground, which is handy because I've got this obstacle. Instead, all I have to do is move it from point to point along the length of what I'm measuring. It's going to record the dimensions, the area, the topography, all of it automatically. I can use this little device to map out and understand this corner of the garden truly in a few short minutes. I'm constantly finding uses for this, and it makes getting on top of this place much easier. To find out more, or to get a Moasure 2 Pro for yourself, check out the link down below. Moasure have kindly provided me with a discount code for you, so that when you go to purchase, make sure to include my discount code X8 Niall. Back across the front garden again, and a shot that you'll probably be well familiar with now, which is how I always come round from the front garden down into the back. Again, more stuff has been removed, an absolute necessity, so it's looking very bare. The ground is very churned up, but don't worry, some things remain. Like this, our beautiful old crabapple. Nobody is touching this. It is staying just as it is. It's perfect. So come on. Let's keep moving and we'll have a look at what's been happening around the back. I used to always weirdly love this little bit of the garden, this little section that runs down the side of the house from the front to the back. But with the hedge taken out, with the remains of some old pavers and building supplies and weeds, it is looking sad. And I promised you radical honesty. And as not great as this looks, because I know that it's not the usual YouTube fare of look how gorgeous my garden looks, it is real. And what I want to show you is that I'm not panicking, or at least I'm not panicking all the time. So if I'm not, you don't with your own garden. Do you remember I said that along the side of the driveway in the front garden, I was going to have one really long, simple grassland perennial planting? Well, that's what's going to happen along here as well. The idea is that the house, which is just off to one side, is going to be wrapped with a lovely, simple, modern planting. And this bank is going to be perfect. If you look, it's about 1.5 meters wide. perfect, nice little slope. So I think if I put a nice square edge on it here and a nice square edge along on the top, get rid of the pavers. There's some of the pavers that are going into the secret garden. Lift the weeds, get things planted. I think this is going to look really, really lovely. Don't worry, just when you think that everything is being ripped out, it's not. Some things remain unchanged. Coming into the back garden, and the really nice things that remain unchanged, our big cedar tree and our really old decrepit apples. I kind of wouldn't be without them at the moment. I think they're lovely. How long they'll stay really long term, I don't know. But they provide a great habitat for wildlife. You can hear the birds. They're lovely. And they just add a kind of anchoring oldness to the garden that I wouldn't swap. Also, the grass is starting to recover. Now, we have had a bit of damage from Storm Éowyn a couple of weeks ago. Oh, this is just one tiny bit of it. Do you remember I said that a lot of the garden has been surrounded by really high Leyland cypress hedges? Well, over the last couple of years, I've been working at getting chunks of those taken down. Ultimately, they're not sustainable to be able to manage. We have, I think it's about 350 or 400 metres of perimeter to this land. That's a lot of hedge cutting. They're also really bad for wildlife. They're virtually dead inside. And what we've started to find is the taller ones are now starting to fall down in the storm and fall into the garden. Ugh. That's for another day. Let's keep looking this way. So here's an angle that you probably haven't seen for quite a while. This is the back main lawn. And the reason you haven't seen it for a while is that it's been an utter disaster. Thankfully, it's not so much of a disaster now. The reason for that is because a lot of the work that I've chosen to get done is very much destructive work, but it was a necessary evil. So for starters, all the way along here, there were really big, tall shrubs, but they were massive and they weren't the things I liked. They blocked out a lot of light to the house and actually they were starting to encroach on the house and it was time for them to go. I was going to cut them out and then realised the scale of the job. I mean, it's metres and metres and metres all the way to our perimeter. So instead, the JCB came in, just like it's done with everything else, and ripped everything out in one go. Brilliant, because it does a very efficient job. But in the process, it really damaged the grass here. And you probably can't see it here, but effectively you're going up and downhill. Up and downhill. It really undulates. And this was basically bare earth once they were finished. However, I've been working away, just letting the grass settle, cutting it now and then, and you can see it's not great. It's certainly full of weeds, but at least it's starting to look more green, which at the moment is all I can really hope for. As well, you may notice quite how open it is when you look out towards the greenhouse and towards the guild garden. And that's because, do you remember a moment ago I said about how we're removing all of the Leyland cypress perimeter hedging? That was the first section to come out, about 65 metres, that's how long it was, from the front at the secret garden, running all the way down the perimeter and down the side of the guild garden. It's really opened up the land. There's so much air, there's so much space, and there's so much light, and it's really nice because it gets all of those benefits into the guild garden. So come on, let's have a look at the guild garden. I always talk about the guild garden being the beating heart of the garden, and my goodness is it that. Even though this all looks quite sedate and a bit messy at the moment, things are happening. I'm starting to lift all of my bulb pots out with last year's bulbs that are coming back. As well as that, I've planted dozens more bulb pots for the spring with more gorgeous tulips and daffodils and irises, you name it. They're going to be going out in the centre here and it's going to look wild. I also like to leave things. I know that at the moment it looks really messy, but trust me, a lot of this is actually deliberate. Granted, the creeping buttercup isn't, neither is the couch grass, but other things that are, things like this, This is a really big fennel, and when it flowers, it's statuesque. I mean, it's at least a foot taller than me. It's about 7 foot high. But what I do is I leave it all the way through the winter so that it goes to seed. The seeds eventually disperse, the birds eat some of them, and I love the skeletal remains of it. I think it's beautiful. But now at the base, the plant is starting to spring back into life, so it's time for these to be cut back. The fruit trees are doing brilliantly. They seem to be settling in really nicely. For most of them, this is only really their second year settling in here, but they're doing well. This is one of my pear trees. Which one is this? This is Bear Hardy, and I'm hopeful if I could even get one fruit this year, I'd be delighted, but I think that still might be a little bit too soon. Otherwise, the greenhouse is full of little seedlings getting started, and my task at the moment, you'll see all the piles of stuff, is me starting to clear away all of that material that I intentionally left over the winter, clear the beds, get them mulched, and get more plants going. But everything is happening in here. You see me all the time presenting my segments from here. I absolutely love it. So that's about it for here. It's going to look incredible in about 6 weeks' time. This is its quiet period. Just wait until what it's going to look like. Now, will we have a walk across the garden and have a look at the pond? There was a bit of a disaster. Oh yeah, while we're on our way to the pond, let's have a quick moment to talk about this. This is one bit of hedge that is not getting ripped up because it's one of my favourite parts of the garden. I really love this beech hedge. And if you watched last week's video about mistakes that gardeners make, this features, because I was talking about how one of the mistakes that people make is letting their hedges grow and grow over years and not having the confidence to cut them deeply to get them back into shape when they're a deciduous hedge like this. Well, this is what I'm about to do. I've been putting the job off because I wanted it to look nice for the garden tour, but you can see how, as I start to walk back here, it starts to come further and further out. It should actually be cutting through this way, so very shortly all of this material is getting cut back and I'm going to get this hedge into proper order. Can't wait. It's going to look a little bit bare for a year, but it's going to be worth it. Okay, pond time. Let's go this way. If you think this area around the pond looks a little bit sad, guess what? I agree with you. It does look a little bit sad. Generally, this area is relatively shaded, but not so dark. But at the moment you might notice that it looks unusually enclosed and dark. And that's because of Storm Éowyn and the other theme of this episode, Leylandii cypress. Some of the very tallest ones that we have are here, behind the cedar tree running along this part of the garden. And we had a couple come down in Storm Dara just before Christmas, but Éowyn kicked in and it knocked a load of them down. And what I'm left with now are a whole load of massive boughs, and I need to be quite careful being under here. Big pieces that have come down on top of the rockery. It's going to be a really awkward job to get them cut down and get them chopped up. And the problem with things like this is that's a job that's going to take me multiple days to get done. It's going to use a load of energy, and effectively all that's doing is clearing. It's not making real progress or planting things or, I suppose, really enjoying the garden. But needs must. They are for the chopping block another year. Quelle surprise. Otherwise, the pond itself is doing fine at this time of year. It's very quiet, but it's still nice and clear. The pond lilies are looking good. I'm hopeful for some nice flowers this year. And I can see that the marsh marigolds are now starting to come back. There's nice fresh leaves. So come, well, I don't know, about 6 to 8 weeks from now, there's going to be lovely yellow flowers. Cannot wait. Right. I think you've pretty much seen everything around here. So, will we finish up? There you have it. That is my garden in February. Thanks for coming, spending some time with me in the garden and sharing this place together. Hopefully you've enjoyed seeing what it's like. Hopefully you're not despairing. And hopefully you're excited about the possibilities of what is to come in this place. I know that this isn't the standard pretty garden tour video, but what it is real, it's honest, and hopefully it shows that when things are bad, it's like an omelette. You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and my goodness am I breaking eggs at the moment. Anyway, thanks for coming along with me. We're going to have a look at the garden in a month's time. I'm going to keep doing garden tours, and until next time, see you later.